Good morning, students. So, today we are going to start with a new chapter that is financial management. In your early classes, you studied about what is management. Okay, so when coming to financial management, this chapter it totally deals with how the fund available in the organization has to be utilized in a proper manner. That each and every organization has certain factors of production like land, labor, capital, and organization. For every organization, what happens is that finance becomes very important, or it is considered as a most important factor of production. So any kind of business, it depends on the finance, as it is a basic requirement for every business organization. All the plans of business men would remain mere dreams unless adequate amount or enough amount of finance is available to convert that particular dream into reality. So each and every businessman will have certain what plans in his eye, what hand or in his mind. So what happens if he does not have enough amount of finance to convert that particular plan to reality? Then what happens is like a dreams will be, or it will remain as a mere dream. It will not get satisfied. So finance is a scarce resource like every other resource which we have in the organization. So the a need for its effective utilization is very important. Utilizing the fund, whatever may be, not just fund, or it may be any resources that is available in the organization. There has to be effective utilization of resources. So no organization should face a situation of either surplus or a deficit fund. So surplus as well as deficit fund, both is a problem for the business organization. So if it is a surplus, then obviously what happens is like the business concern he starts investing on the things which is not really important. When it is deficit, then what happens is that the businessman will face difficulty in reaching his objective or the plan which is he has in mind, because the amount which is required for reaching this particular objective will not be sufficient. So there are chances that he may face certain difficulty. So that is the problem. Okay, the aim of every business organization is to get optimum finance and use it efficiently, not only efficiently but also effectively, for profit maximization and also for wealth maximization. Not just profit maximization and wealth maximization. So achieving the organizational objective also is one of the important task or the objective which the organization has. So profit may be a profit maximization, wealth maximization, and also achieving the organizational objective. So only if our organizational objectives is achieved, only then you can achieve both the profit as well as the wealth maximization, or you can maximize profit as well as wealth in the organization. So the financial resources have to be managed properly. They have to be managed properly. Only then what happens is like the organization will be able to achieve its objectives in a proper manner. So the success of business, it depends on how well the finance is invested in the assets and operations. So how timely and cheaply the finances are arranged from outsiders or from within the business organization. So see, when we are starting a business organization, it is very important to arrange funds. Okay, so whatever may be the source through which you are arranging, whether it is a owner's fund or borrower's fund, or any other kind of fund. So it's very important that you manage those funds available in the organization in an effective manner. So only then you can achieve the target in a proper way. Okay, so that utilization of fund or implementation of fund in a proper manner has to be done. Only then the organization will be effective or efficient in reaching the target. So first we'll go to the meaning of business finance. So what is the meaning of business finance? Okay. So what happens here is like money required for carrying out business activity. Money required for carrying out business activities is called as business finance. Money required for carrying out business activities is called as business finance. So almost all business activities require some finance. So there is no business without investment. Yeah. So like I told you in your previous classes, like there is no business organization. So whatever may be the business you are carrying out, so there is some amount of investment or capital required to start the business organization. In the same way, finance becomes very important. So almost all business require some amount of finance. So finance is needed to establish a business, to run it, to modernize, to expand, to diversify. So for all these things, finance becomes very important. So it is required for buying variety of assets, maybe it may be tangible or intangible assets. So while coming to tangible assets, it may be machinery or factory, land, building, offices, yes, all these things. So when coming to your intangible are the one which cannot be touched and felt. Yes. Okay. So here what happens is like it may be patent or technical expertise or anything. Yes, trademark maybe or anything. Okay. So all these are intangible assets. So what happens is like financial is central to running the day-to-day operations of business. So when you are running the business organization, you will have to buy materials, you have to pay bill, salaries, then you have to collect cash from the customers. So all these are very important. So in every stage of the life, yes, so it is needed at every stage in the life of a business entity. So available of adequate finance is very crucial or very important for both the survival as well as business. So if there is no adequate finance in the business organization, then there are chances that the survival of the business organization may be hindered, or the growth of business organization may sometime get hindered. So that is a main drawback. So finance becomes very important. So business finance is very important for a business organization or business concern to achieve its target. So if he faces deficit finance in the business organization, then there are chances that he may fail, or there will be delay in reaching the objective which he has set in the organization. So next we'll learn about what is financial management. We've already learned about what is business finance. So I told you that money required for carrying out business activities is called as business finance. So when coming to your financial management, so this financial management is concerned with optimal procurement as well as usage of finance. So not just procuring the what finance is enough. What you have to do is like the amount which is procured, has to be utilized in a proper manner. So usage of that particular finance which is procured has to be done in a proper manner. So for optimal procurement, different available sources of finance are identified. Yeah. So for optimal procurement, different available sources of finance are identified and compared in terms of their cost and associated risk. So similarly, the finance so procured may needs or may need to be invested in a manner that the returns from the invested exceed the cost at which the procurement takes place. So see, whenever you are raising funds, so what happens is like you have to bear some amount of cost on raising any kind of finance in the organization. So the finance so raised in the organization, it should be need, or it has to be invested in such a manner, that the returns from the investment should be more than the cost which is borne for procuring the ಫಿನಾನ್ಸ್. ಸೊ ಏನು ಫಿನಾನ್ಸನ್ನ ತಗೊಳ್ಳಿಕ್ಕೆ ನಾವು ಕಾಸ್ಟನ್ನ ಬೇರ್ ಮಾಡಿರ್ತೀವಿ, ಅದಕ್ಕಿಂತ ಇನ್ವೆಸ್ಟ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಅಥವಾ ನಮ್ಮ ರಿಟರ್ನ್ಸ್ ಏನಿದೆ ಅದು ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಇರಬೇಕು. ಯಾವುದೇ ಕಾರಣಕ್ಕೆ ನಾವು ಖರ್ಚು ಮಾಡಿದ್ಕಿಂತ ಕಡಿಮೆ ಸಿಗೋ ಹಾಗಿಲ್ಲ, ಖರ್ಚು ಮಾಡಿದ್ಕಿಂತ ಜಾಸ್ತಿನೇ ಸಿಗಬೇಕು. ಸೊ ದ ರಿಟರ್ನ್ ವಾಟ್ ಯು ಗೆಟ್ ಫ್ರಮ್ ದಿ ಇನ್ವೆಸ್ಟ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಶುಡ್ ಬಿ ಮೋರ್ ದೆನ್ ದಿ ಕಾಸ್ಟ್ at which the procurement has taken place. So this financial management, it aims at reducing the cost of funds procured. Yes, it aims at reducing the cost of funds procured, keeping the risk under control, and achieving effective deployment of such things. So it also aims at ensuring availability of enough funds whenever required, as well as avoiding the idle finance. So if there is idle finance in the business organization, then what happens is, like I told you, like the wastage of resources becomes more in the organization when there is idle finance in the organization. So financial management, it totally aims at reducing the cost of funds procured. This, so it tries to reduce the cost of the fund which is procured. So what and also what it does is it keeps the risk under control. Yes, and also it achieves, or it helps in achieving the effective deployment of such funds. So like I told you, one thing is raising fund at minimum cost. Yes, raising fund at minimum cost, reducing the risk, or keeping the risk under control, and seeing that the fund which is raised, yes, the fund which is raised there is deployed in a proper manner. The fund which is raised is deployed in a proper manner. So it also aims at ensuring availability of enough funds whenever required. It also aims at ensuring the availability of enough funds whenever required, as well as avoiding idle finance, as well as idle avoiding idle finance. So the next concept is importance of financial management. So what are the importance of financial management? So importance of financial management is important what aspect which we have to study. So when coming to your importance of management, like I told you, the role of financial management cannot be overemphasized. So it has a direct bearing on the financial health of the business. Yes, the role of a financial management cannot be overemphasized. The reason is that it has a direct bearing on the financial health of the business. The financial statements, such as balance sheet and profit and loss, reflect the firm's financial position. So you know this already, alva. So ಏನು ಬ್ಯಾಲೆನ್ಸ್ ಶೀಟ್ ಇರುತ್ತೆ ಅಥವಾ ಪ್ರಾಫಿಟ್ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಲಾಸ್ ಇರುತ್ತೆ, it totally reflects the firm's financial position and its financial health. So almost all items in the financial statement of the business are affected directly or indirectly through some financial management decision. So I told you, like, financial management has been in a proper manner. The investment of fund or deployment of fund should be in a effective manner. Only then the organization can raise a good amount of finance. Yes. So if not, then what happens? It will be problematic for the organization. Yeah. So under the importance of financial management, the first one is the size and composition of fixed asset of a business. Size and composition of fixed asset of a business. So here what happens is, like, a capital budgeting decisions to invest a sum of rupees, some 100 crores. Textbook ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಏನು ಕೊಟ್ಟಿದ್ದಾರೆ ಅಂತಂದರೆ ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್ ಕೊಟ್ಟಿದ್ದಾರೆ. A capital budgeting decision to invest a sum of 100 crores on fixed asset would raise the size of fixed assets block by this amount. So what you do is, like, here you raise the fund according to the size and composition of fixed assets of the business. So what you do is, like, you totally estimate the capital requirement. Yeah, totally estimate the capital requirement of the business organization. So you look into the size of fixed asset and also the composition of fixed asset of the business organization. See, for example, if the amount of fixed asset required for the organization is relatively less, if the amount of fixed asset required for the organization is less, then what you can do is, like, the amount which has to be raised for fixed asset can be reduced. Yes. So what happens when the organization has less amount of fixed asset, and the organization has less amount of fixed asset, then what happens is, like, obviously the finance can be reduced to a greatest extent. The finance can be reduced to a greatest extent. So that becomes an advantage for the organization. So like it is told here, a capital budgeting decision to invest a sum of 100 crores on fixed asset would raise the size of fixed asset block by this amount. So what happens when you are investing more on the fixed asset? When you are investing more on the fixed asset, what happens? It would raise the size of fixed asset in the organization. So the size of fixed assets in the organization will totally go high when the what size of the business organization is more. So that is the one main thing which you have to look into. That is the main thing which you have to look into when coming to the business organization. So the second one is the quantum of current assets and its breakup into cash, inventory, and receivables. The quantum of current assets and its breakup into cash, inventory, and receivable. So here what happens, like with the increase or with an increase in the investment in fixed assets, yes, with the increase in the investment in fixed assets, so there is a increase in the working capital requirement as well. So when the fixed assets in the organization is more, when the fixed asset in the organization is more, ಯಾವಾಗ ಆರ್ಗನೈಸೇಷನಲ್ಲಿ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಫಿಕ್ಸ್ಡ್ ಅಸೆಟ್ ಇರುತ್ತೆ, ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ, ಅದೇ ರೀತಿ ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ, ವರ್ಕಿಂಗ್ ಕ್ಯಾಪಿಟಲ್ ರಿಕ್ವೈರ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಕೂಡ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ಆರ್ಗನೈಸೇಷನಲ್ಲಿ ಫಿಕ್ಸ್ಡ್ ಅಸೆಟ್ ಎಷ್ಟು ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಆಯ್ತಾ ಹೋಗುತ್ತೆ, ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ತಕ್ಕಂತೆ ನಾವು ಡೇ ಟು ಡೇ ವರ್ಕಿಂಗ್ಸನ್ನು ಕೂಡ ಏನು ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಹೋಗ್ತೀವಿ, ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಹೋಗ್ತೀವಿ. ಯಾವುದೇ ಕಾರಣಕ್ಕೆ ನಾವು ತುಂಬ ಅಸೆಟನ್ನು ಇಟ್ಕೊಂಡು ಕಡಿಮೆ ಕೆಲಸ ಮಾಡೋದಿಲ್ಲ. ಸೊ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಅಸೆಟ್ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಇದೆ ಅನ್ನುವಾಗ ಆಬ್ವಿಯಸ್ಲಿ ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ, ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಕೆಲಸಗಳು ಕೂಡ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ it totally increases the working capital requirement in the organization. So the quantum of current asset is also influenced by what financial management decision. Current assets is also influenced by the what your current this financial management decision. So decisions about the credit and inventory. So when coming to current assets, it may be creditors, debtors or inventory or anything. So decisions about credit and inventory management affect the amount of debtors and inventory. So what amount of credit has to be taken? So debtors ಅಲ್ಲಿ debtors ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. So inventory ಇರ್ಬೋದು, stock, inventory ಅಂದರೆ stock. So decisions about credit and inventory management affect the amount of debtors and inventory, which in turn affect the total current assets as well as their composition. ನಾನು ಹೇಳಿದಾಗೆ ಏನು ಫಿಕ್ಸ್ಡ್ ಅಸೆಟ್ ರೈಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀರಿ ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ತಕ್ಕಂತೆ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ವರ್ಕಿಂಗ್ ಕ್ಯಾಪಿಟಲ್ ರಿಕ್ವೈರ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಕೂಡ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ಏನು ಸ್ಟಾಕನ್ನು ತಗೋತೀರಿ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ, ಕರೆಂಟ್ ಅಸೆಟ್ ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ, ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ದಿ ಕಾಂಪೋಸಿಷನ್ ಆಲ್ಸೋ increases here according to the things done in the organization. So the next one, the third one is the amount of long term and short term funds to be used. The amount of long term and short term funds to be used. The amount of long term and short term funds to be used. So when coming to the amount of long term and short term funds to be used, so the financial management among others involves decision about the portion of long term and short term fund. Why? Because the business can't always rely on short term funds. Yes, so when sometimes there are chances that the business requires long term funds. Why? Because when you take a huge amount of money, then it becomes difficult for an organization to repay the amount in a long duration. So it will have to take up a long term fund. So here it's like it totally depends on long term and short term. So among others, so it involves decision about the proportion of long term and short term fund. So an organization wanting to have more liquid asset, when an organization is wanting to have more liquid asset, would raise relatively more amount of long term fund when they want to have liquid asset. So what they do is like they raise more amount of long term fund. They raise more amount of long term fund. So there is a choice between liquidity and profitability. There is a choice between liquidity and profitability. So it would raise more amount on a long term basis. So there is a choice between liquidity and profitability. So the underlying assumption here is that current liabilities cost less than long term liability. Current liability, they cost less than the long term liability. So that is the main thing which works here. So the amount of long term funds and short-term funds to be used in the organization. So if you want more liquidity, what to do is like you take up with the what you go on with the long-term fund. So if you want less liquidity or liquid asset in the organization, then obviously what to do is like you take up short-term fund. So it is totally dependent on you, like what kind of decisions you are going to take. So that is very important here. Okay, so the next one is a breakup of long term financing into debt, equity, etc. Long term financing breakup of long term financing into debt, equity, etc. So when coming to your breakup of long term financing into debt, equity, etc., so of the long term finance, the proportion to be raised by the way of debt or equity is raised or is also a financial management decision. So what amount or the proportion to be raised by way of debt or equity, so what amount of owners fund has to be used and what amount of borrowers fund has to be used in the organization, whether all the amount has to be borrowers fund or all the amount has to be owners fund. So that is very important here. So whether you are going to use owners fund or borrowers fund. So if you are using owners fund, so what amount or what percentage of owners fund has been used here and what percentage of borrowers fund is to be used here. That is why it is said that debt is nothing but the borrowers fund. That is debt is nothing but the borrowers fund and equity is nothing but this owners fund. So it plays a very important role in the financial management decision. So the amount of debt or equity share capital, preference share are affected by the financing decision, so which is a part of financing management. So you decide regarding how the funds has to be managed in the organization. Like I told you, what amount of fund has to be or to what extent the fund has to be raised from different sources like owners fund or borrowers fund. So that is an important decision when coming to financial management. So the fifth one is all items in the profits and losses account. Example, interest, expense, depreciation, etc. All items in the profit and loss account. Example, interest, expense, depreciation, etc. So higher amount of debt means higher interest. Yes, higher amount of debt means higher interest. Is expense in the future. So higher amount of debt means higher interest expense in the future. Similarly, the use of high equity may entail high payments of dividend. So when you increase your debt, yes, when you take up more loans, ಯಾವಾಗ ನೀವು ಲೋನ್ಸ್ ಅನ್ನು ತಗೋತೀರಿ, ಡೆಟ್ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಸಾಲ, ಎಸ್, ಯಾವಾಗ ನೀವು ಸಾಲ ತಗೋತೀರಿ, so what you have to do is like you will have to end up paying a good amount of or a huge amount of interest. So a huge amount of interest or money will go in the way of interest, so which is totally an expense for an organization. So when you plan to have more equity or higher equity, so what happens is like when you have more amount of equity in the organization, at that particular situation, what you have to do is like you will have to end up with paying high amount of dividend. So what you do is like you pay high amount of dividend. So dividend payment becomes totally high. So there is a difference. Yeah. So when you raise high amount of debt, ಯಾವಾಗ ನೀವು ಸಾಲ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ತಗೋತೀರಿ ಅವಾಗ ಏನು ಮಾಡಬೇಕಾಗುತ್ತೆ, ಇಂಟ್ರೆಸ್ಟನ್ನು ಪೇ ಮಾಡಬೇಕಾಗುತ್ತೆ, ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಅಮೌಂಟ್ ಆಫ್ ಇಂಟ್ರೆಸ್ಟನ್ನು ಪೇ ಮಾಡಬೇಕಾಗುತ್ತೆ. ಅದೇನಾಗುತ್ತೆ, ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಡ್ರಾಬ್ಯಾಕ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ಎಸ್, ಯಾವಾಗ ನಾವು ಈಕ್ವಿಟಿಯಿಂದ ಫಂಡ್ಸನ್ನು ರೈಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ, ವೆನ್ ವಿ ರೈಸ್ ಫಂಡ್ಸ್ ಥ್ರೂ ಈಕ್ವಿಟಿ, ಎಸ್, ಸೊ ಯೂಸ್ ಆಫ್ ಹೈಯರ್ ಈಕ್ವಿಟಿ ಮೇ ಎಂಟೇಲ್ ಹೈಯರ್ ಪೇಮೆಂಟ್ ಆಫ್ ಡಿವಿಡೆಂಡ್. ಸೊ ಯಾವಾಗ ನಾವು ಈಕ್ವಿಟಿಯನ್ನು ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ರೈಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ ಅವಾಗ ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ, ಡಿವಿಡೆಂಡ್ಸ್ ಏನು ಪೇ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು ಶೇರ್ ಹೋಲ್ಡರ್ಸ್ಗೆ ಅದು ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ದ ಅಮೌಂಟ್ ಆಫ್ ಡಿವಿಡೆಂಡ್ ವಿಚ್ ಹ್ಯಾಸ್ ಟು ಬಿ ಪೇಡ್ ವಿಲ್ ಬಿ more. So ಅಲ್ಲೇನಾಗುತ್ತೆ, ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಒಂದು ಪ್ರಾಬ್ಲಮ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ಸಿಮಿಲರ್ಲಿ an expansion of business which is a result of capital budgeting decision is likely to affect virtually all items in the profit and loss account of the business. So expansion of business ಯಾವಾಗ expansion ಆಗುತ್ತೆ, so which is a result of capital budgeting decision. which is the what result of capital budgeting, is likely to affect virtually all the items in the PL account. So whatever things comes in the PL account will get affected or will have some certain changes in the PL account of the business. So all items in the profit and loss account, that is interest maybe or expenses or depreciation, so there will be or it will have effect or it will affect virtually all the items in the PL or the profit and loss account of the business. So it can be stated that the financial statement of business are largely determined by the financial management decisions taken earlier. So similarly, the future financial statements would depend upon part as well as the current financial decisions. So totally depends upon the past as well as the current financial decision. So the overall financial health of the business is determined by the quality of its financial management. So if the decision is good, then obviously the quality or if the financial management is good, then obviously the financial health of the business organization will be good. ಯಾವಾಗ ನಾವು ಪ್ರಾಪರ್ ಆಗಿ ಫಿನಾನ್ಸ್ ಅನ್ನ ಮ್ಯಾನೇಜ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ, when the financial decision taken by the business organization is good, ಯಾವಾಗ ನಾವು ಪ್ರಾಪರ್ ಆಗಿ ಫಿನಾನ್ಷಿಯಲ್ ಡಿಸಿಷನ್ಸ್ ಅನ್ನು ತಗೋತೀವಿ, ಅವಾಗ ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಇದು ಪಾಸಿಟಿವ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ, ಅಂದರೆ ಫಿನಾನ್ಷಿಯಲ್ ಹೆಲ್ತ್ ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿ ಹೋಗುತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ಇಫ್ ದ ಡಿಸಿಷನ್ಸ್ ಟೇಕನ್ ಬೈ ದ ಬಿಸ್ನೆಸ್ ಆರ್ಗನೈಸೇಷನ್ ಇಸ್ ರಾಂಗ್, then what happens is like there are certain chances of problems that may arise in the business organization, like the financial health of the business organization totally reduces. So what you have to do is like you have to think wisely and then take up certain financial decisions. So everything ಅಲ್ಲೂ ಯಾವುದೇ ವಿಷಯದಲ್ಲಾಗಿರಿದ್ರು ಏನು ಮಾಡಬೇಕಾಗುತ್ತೆ, ಯೋಚನೆ ಮಾಡಿ ಮತ್ತು ಡಿಸಿಷನ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕಾಗುತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ಗುಡ್ ಫಿನಾನ್ಷಿಯಲ್ ಮ್ಯಾನೇಜ್ಮೆಂಟ್ aims at mobilization of financial resources at a lower cost and deployment of these in most lucrative activities. So good financial management aims at mobilization of financial resources at a lower cost and deployment of these in most lucrative activity. So the next concept is objectives of financial management. So what is the objective of financial management? So the main aim of financial management, or the primary aim of the financial management, is to maximize the shareholders wealth, which is referred to as wealth maximization. So we'll have to concentrate both on wealth maximization as well as profit maximization. So that is those two are the main objectives of the business organization. Okay, so the market price of the company's shares is linked to the three basic financial decisions, which we will be studying later. Okay, so this is because the company's funds they belong to shareholders, and the manner in which they are invested and the return earned by them determines their market value. So it means that maximization of market value of equity shares, the market price of equity shares increases. Yes, means the maximization of market value of equity shares. The market price of equity shares increase if the benefit from the decision exceeds the cost involved. The market price of equity shares increase if the benefit from the decision exceed the cost involved. So all financial decisions aims at ensuring that each decision is sufficient and adds some value. All financial decisions aim at ensuring that each decisions is sufficient and adds some value. So the value additions or such value additions tend to increase the market price of shares. So those financial decisions are taken which will ultimately prove gainful from the point of view of the shareholder. So the shareholders gain if the value of shares in the market increases. So those decisions which result in the decline of shareholder price are poor financial decisions. So we can say that the objective of financial management is to maximize the current price of equity shares of the company, or to maximize the wealth of the owners of the company. So that is the shareholder. So ಅರ್ಥ ಆಗಿರ್ಬೋದು ಅನ್ಕೋತೀನಿ. ಸೊ ಇಲ್ಲೇನಾಗುತ್ತೆ, what happens here is like the market price of equity shareholders or equity shares increases. Okay, so here it totally means the maximization of market value of equity shares. So the market price of equity share increases if the benefit from the decision exceeds the cost involved. ಯಾವಾಗ ಇಫ್ ದಿ ಬೆನಿಫಿಟ್ಸ್ ಫ್ರಮ್ ದಿ ಡಿಸಿಷನ್ ಎಕ್ಸೀಡ್ಸ್ ದಿ ಕಾಸ್ಟ್ ಇನ್ವಾಲ್ವ್ಡ್, ಏನು ಕಾಸ್ಟ್ ಇದೆ ಅದಕ್ಕಿಂತ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಬೆನಿಫಿಟ್ ಬಂದರೆ ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ, ಮಾರ್ಕೆಟ್ ಶೇರ್ ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ, ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ಎಸ್, Okay, so all financial decision, it aims at ensuring that each decision is effective and adds some value. So such value or such value additions tends to increase the market what price of the share. So those financial decisions that are taken, which will ultimately prove gainful from the point of view of shareholders. The shareholders gain if the value of shares in the market increases. Yes, so only when the market share or value of market shares in the market increases, the shareholders will gain. So if the value of what shares in the market reduces, obviously it will be a loss for the shareholder. So those decisions which result in decline in the share price are poor financial decisions. Obviously, ಯಾವಾಗ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಏನು ಶೇರ್ ಪ್ರೈಸ್ ಕಡಿಮೆ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ, ಇಟ್ ಮೀನ್ಸ್ ದಟ್ ಇಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಅ ಪುವರ್ ಫಿನಾನ್ಷಿಯಲ್ ಡಿಸಿಷನ್. ಸೊ ದ objective of financial management is to maximize the current price to equity shares of the company, or to maximize the wealth of owners of the company, that is the shareholders. So when a decision is taken about investment in a new machine, the aim of financial management is to ensure that benefits from the investment exceeds the cost. So always the benefits should exceed the cost, so that some value addition will be there, or some value addition takes place. So when finance is procured, the aim is to reduce the cost so that the value addition is even higher. The aim is to reduce the cost so that the value addition is even higher. So in all financial decisions, major or minor, the ultimate objective that guides the decision maker is that some value addition should take place. All those avenues of investment, modes of financing, ways of handling various components of working capital must be identified, which will ultimately lead to increase in the price of equity share. So this can happen only through efficient decision making. So decision making is efficient if the out of various available alternatives. So what you have to do is, like, out of various available alternatives, the best one is to be selected. So that is the main thing when coming to the objective. So it's like the decisions will have to be positive. So whatever decisions you are taking, it should the benefits from that particular decision or investment should exceed the cost. It should be more than the cost which is incurred.